Today I'm going to let you know of some questions you can ask your clients to easily identify whether they qualify for R&D tax relief. So if you want to learn more, stick around and let's go! Welcome to the R&D Tax Show, where we help accountants, tax advisors and their clients claim R&D tax relief. I'm Tessin, the founder of GrowthPad, and we help companies claim R&D tax relief. So I've already mentioned at the beginning that today we'll talk about how we can help you easily identify whether your clients qualify for R&D tax relief or not. So you may do the R&D tax, you may provide it in-house, or you may outsource it to a third party like myself. So hopefully by the end of this episode, you'll be able to easily identify whether your clients qualify or not. Now, there's a few things that as the accountants of your clients you should already be aware of. The first is you know whether your client is a going concern. So that is one of the conditions to qualify for R&D tax relief. The second thing is, has your client received any grants? Now, I'm going to make a video about grants in the next few weeks because it's quite an important topic. But to provide the information now and to keep it in a nutshell, by claiming grants you can reduce the amount of R&D tax relief you receive. So if you do receive a grant, what it can do, it can either push part or all of the qualifying costs of a certain project into the RDEC scheme. So what that means is, from going from the SME scheme where your client potentially gets approximately 25% relief, they may only get just under 10.5% relief under the RDEC scheme. So it's important to establish whether your clients have or not received any grant funding or any subsidies. You'll also want to establish whether your client does actually fall under the SME scheme or the RDEC scheme. And I've made a video a few weeks ago where you can check out here. It's quite important to identify which scheme your client falls within, because as I've mentioned, the SME scheme is much more generous than the RDEC scheme. Just to summarize, your client could be within the SME scheme if it meets the following conditions. So firstly, it has to have less than 500 employees. Secondly, it has to have less than either of 100 million euro turnover or 86 million euro on the balance sheet as gross assets. Now, you'll have the historic records to identify whether your client is an SME, and I think in most cases, most of my target audience actually will have clients that fall within the SME scheme. Just another quick thing about the SME scheme: if your client is part of a group, you have to aggregate all the turnover, gross assets and the staff numbers for the whole group. And as I've mentioned, the previous video that I've done will also cover that. The activity or the project undertaken by your client has to be in connection with the trade it's either undertaking or whether it's planning to undertake in the future. So I think in most cases, well, in most circumstances, I've never had to tell any of my clients that they don't qualify because of that condition, because most of the time they'll only do projects that are part of the trade, or whether they want to create a new business, they'll be part of an intended trade. So I think that's quite straightforward. I've created a video which will be here that goes through what the definition is for R&D and how it'll also show you how I've simplified that definition. Now, just to quickly go over that, let's look at the two parts of the definition that I think are really important. The first is the company has to attempt an advance in science or technology. Now, the second part is they have to attempt to overcome technological or scientific uncertainties. So the first thing that you can ask your client is, have you developed any new products, processes, software or machinery? If that's a yes, then you know that they have undertaken some sort of development. So you can then go forward and ask the second question. The second question you can ask your client is, during that development, did they undertake any work that wasn't routine or didn't follow any established methodology? Now that will help you identify whether there were actually any uncertainties within their project. So I'll give you an example. I did a video on construction in R&D. I'll link that here. And in that video, there was an example where a home builder would undertake R&D. So let's use that as an example here. So if your client's in the construction sector, you could ask them, did you develop any houses in the last accounting period? Yes. Okay. Next question. In the process of building that property, did you have to do anything that didn't follow anything of routine, or did you have to do anything that didn't follow established methods and processes? So if that's a yes, then it kind of shows that there were technological uncertainties, and once you've identified a couple of those, I think you're able to easily find that there was some sort of advance in technology. Most of the claims that are made under the R&D tax scheme are for actual product or process development. They're not actually for scientific research. I think scientific research equates to approximately 10% of all claims, so it's not a substantive area of where claims are made. But still, there clearly are companies that do undertake scientific research. So what is scientific research? Well, it could include creating new, in the pharmaceutical industry, creating new medicines. Perhaps you're testing new ingredients for medicines or some chemicals or some sort of other product. But the actual research element would be perhaps the actual testing to understand what effects these chemicals have on perhaps the human body or in a certain environment. It could be comparative studies as well, as in X ingredients in this and Y ingredients in this, and then you test both of them, and then you can compare the results of two. That would also be scientific research. So once you've established your client has either developed a product, process, software, machinery, or has undertaken scientific research, and you've understood that they have not followed in some element routine development or established methodologies, you can now go on to the next question. And once you've established that your client has either developed a new product, process, machinery or software, or has undertaken scientific research, you should ask whether they've incurred any qualifying costs. There's no point in your client undertaking any R&D project and having no cost, because then there's nothing to claim back. So you should ask whether any of their staff members were involved in the project, because then you can take a proportion of their salaries and pension contributions and company paid NICs. You could also ask whether any of the work was outsourced to anybody else, and whether they're paid for their services. Have they incurred any costs on materials, utilities and software? In most cases, the majority of costs for a project lie within the actual staff or outsource element. Let's go look at construction sector, because obviously in there the materials can also be quite a substantial cost element. So you should use your common sense to identify which qualifying cost will generate a sufficient amount of R&D tax relief for the client to actually put a claim through. Because if the client's only, let's say they've incurred £10,000 worth of costs, well, they're going to get back, let's say, £2,500, and out of that they're going to have to pay someone to do the work. So is the work and effort worth doing to only get a tiny amount of cost back? That's another thing that you should discuss with your clients. So there's quite a lot in today's talk, so I'll cover off the questions to ask again. So, has your client developed a new product, process, machinery or software? Question 2, in that development, did they have to do anything that was not following established methods or any routine work? Thirdly, did they incur any qualifying costs, i.e. were staff involved with development? Did they pay some outsourcer to do the work? Did they pay anything on materials, utilities, you'll know from the accounts, or any software costs? And I think that's enough information for you to establish, well, help you, either you or the R&D company that you work alongside, establish whether it's worthy of putting through an R&D claim for your client. So like always, if you've got any further questions, just get in contact with me. You can direct message me on LinkedIn, and this video is on YouTube as well, so you can message me on YouTube and I'll get in touch. I'm recording this from my bedroom, as you can actually tell. I've got this board behind me with my daughter's drawing on it, and she didn't want to erase it, so I've left it on. Everyone take care, and I will catch up with you soon. Bye.